Thank you for coming to our in-service meeting. As you know, the purpose of today's meeting is for us as special education teachers to calm your fears and answer questions about inclusion in your classroom. Inclusion can appear daunting and overbearing. We will start by stating the law behind inclusion because the law is what essentially drives us to implement it. We will then move into 4 different topics of how inclusion can benefit the general ed teacher, the general ed student, the special ed student, and the special ed teacher. Basically, all those involved. We will conclude with an interactive case study where we present with you a situation and ask you to pull out benefits a student may gain from being in an inclusive setting. Okay, inclusion is law mandated. Brown v. Board of Education was a foundational case for inclusion. At this time, both blacks and whites were in separate schools, and Brown v. Board of Education ruled that separate but equal has no place in education. This applies to the special education classroom because those students too have the right to be educated in equal settings and not in separate facilities. Public Law 94-142 states, to the maximum extent appropriate, children with disabilities are educated with children who are non-disabled. And I love the word to the maximum extent because it's going to be different for every student, but it is our job as teachers to find what that maximum extent is and to place those children with those that are non-disabled. In IDEA, it states that every child has the right to a free and appropriate education in the least restrictive environment. And the word here that sticks out to me is least. And like the public law, least is kind of hard to define, but it also is our role to figure out what that means. So that could be in an all-day setting with just the special education students, or it could be in a general ed setting for most of the day. It definitely depends on the student. Okay, moving on to the 4 different topics of how inclusion can benefit the general education teacher, student, and the special education teacher and student. So the first one is that when gen ed teachers teach special ed students in an inclusive setting, they teach through varied domains and mediums, meaning that they teach students in individual ways. So this could look like, at my bullet points below, direct instruction, hands-on learning, or co-teaching. So it helps teachers broaden their spectrum of how they teach in different techniques, allowing them to individually affect different children. This is a great benefit to all because all learn on a more individual level.
One issue that general educators face when it comes to inclusion is the battle to receive parent understanding. However, parents are much more accepting than educators may realize. A study conducted by Charles A. Peck identified how tolerant and understanding parents of elementary students without disabilities are regarding the social and emotional effects of inclusion on their students. 389 parents responded to this survey, and perceptions were generally positive. For 87% of respondents, the overall impact of their child's participation in relationships with peers with severe disabilities had been positive. 12% characterized the impact as neutral, and 1% felt the interaction had been negative. Researchers at the Urban Education Development Center in Newton, Massachusetts, formulated a study to investigate effects on inclusion on general education students, and the results of their study showed benefits for both the special education student and the general education student. The study suggests that the following are some of the benefits derived from relationships between students with and without disabilities: friendship, growth in social cognition and self-concept, development of personal principles, social skills, including becoming more aware of and understanding the needs of others, self-esteem, growth in their commitment to their own moral and ethic principles, becoming advocates for their disabled friends, and patience, especially with those who are slower learners. Values such as these are not taught, they are experienced. Mutually good feelings between two students grow and maintain good feelings and more values, which in turn results in tolerance and understanding. These values don't just affect schooling, but develop strong personal principles which benefit students throughout adulthood. Special education inclusion creates youth prepared to battle discrimination of people with disabilities, and reason says that tolerance and understanding will carry over to other classes of society as well. Researchers have documented cases in which meaningful, long-lasting friendships that benefit both students have emerged between disabled and non-disabled students. Of course, inclusive settings does not mean that all non-disabled children will become close friends with children without disabilities. However, even when relationships remain at the level of a classmate or a familiar acquaintance, versions of these same benefits have been reported in surveys of teachers and other research. As previously shown, inclusion of all students can provide an environment so all students can maximize their educational experience, benefiting not only education students, but general education students as well.
Meet Max. Max is a third grade student with a learning disability. Max is extremely social, but his disability hinders his learning in reading and math. He requires specialized instruction for both subjects. Parents and teachers alike think that Max would benefit greatly from having social interactions with his general education peers. So now it's your turn. Turn to your neighbor and for 1 minute discuss how the general education teachers can work to include Max in their classrooms and the benefits that would come from allowing him to be included in this setting.